This is DDL 144. On this week's show, we discuss memorial plans for Sir Terry Pratchett, the start of the new F1 season, and a quick catch-up on our preparations for our climb up Mount Snowdon. Now, one of my favourite authors growing up was Terry Pratchett. I think I've read pretty much everything he's ever done. Have you read any of his books?
I read one a long time ago, but I never was a big reader at the time, so didn't catch on. But it's still on my to-do list to catch up with him.
You really ought to. They're brilliant books. By far in my top 3 authors of all time. Terry unfortunately died in 2015 after suffering quite publicly with Alzheimer's, and it seems that there's going to be a statue erected in his memory in Salisbury.
All right.
It's been developed and sort of designed, created by a guy called Paul Kidby, who illustrated all of the covers for Terry's books.
Oh, nice.
So he's got sort of he obviously knew Pratchett very, very well. And he's got sort of a connection. So he's doing quite a faithful job, and sort of there's a lot of love and care going into it, I suspect.
Have you seen any sort of drawings of it? Are there any public, or is it going to be a big surprise when it's revealed?
What they've had so far, he's made a bronze casting of a bust, so it's just his sort of shoulders and head up, and that's the sort of the face and the expression that he wants to go on the statue. The statue's going to be larger than life, about 7 foot tall or something. Yeah, and so I've seen a picture of that, and it looks fantastic. It really does look good.
With the trademark hat on, I take it?
Absolutely, yeah, and the shortcut beard, and it obviously, but it really does look like Terry Pratchett. But they're planning on, like I say, a 7 foot statue to go in the Market Square in Salisbury, and Paul's plans are to try to include some of the more famous characters from his books in the statue itself. So, like, have them sort of poking out of his pockets of his jacket or something.
Oh, right, nice. Well, will the statue be stood on a flat earth that's balancing on the back of a turtle? That's sort of, you half expect it to be. You'd be disappointed if it's not.
You'd kind of like it to be, wouldn't you? Yeah. But well, at the moment, they haven't actually got planning permission for the statue. But from what I've read, it's pretty much a foregone. It's just a formality when it's actually made and they start applying. So the work's going ahead for it. But as it stands at the moment, they're building it, but have absolutely nowhere to put it right at the minute.
And why Salisbury?
Because he lived in a village not far from. So
okay.
I suspect Salisbury's the biggest. Is Salisbury a town or a city?
Ooh. Salisbury Cathedral rings a bell, but I wouldn't be certain.
Yeah, so it's probably a city.
Yeah.
So I suspect that's probably the place that could accommodate quite a lot of tourists and fans coming to see the statue, rather than some pokey little hamlet where he did actually live.
Well, sometimes you get where they were born, sometimes you get where they were died, and sometimes you get the area that made them famous. So if Salisbury's sort of near all 3, I guess the area that made him famous is in his head. So
yeah, I do think a lot of it was based and sort of inspired from, because he lived there all his life. And I know that I've been down that sort of area, Somerset type area, and there's lots of Pratchett. I'm not sure knockoffs are the right word. Yeah, there's lots of sort of, you look in little curiosity shops and there's little rats with scythes and that kind of thing. So
the pub's called the Broken Drum.
Yeah. So I suspect that a lot of the stuff that he wrote about and a lot of the characterizations of certain people he wrote about, he pulled from that area.
Yeah, yeah. I've only ever read the one, which was so long ago I can't even remember which one it was, to be honest.
What happened?
I think Death went on holiday.
Oh, that would be Mort.
If you say so.
Death's Apprentice.
Death went on holiday, and therefore everything went wrong because nobody was dying, and
that sounds like Mort.
Everything was sped up because there was some mention about how cities are born, and cities are born from somebody dumps a shopping trolley, and from a shopping trolley it becomes a gypsy encampment. From a gypsy encampment it becomes a housing estate. From a housing estate it becomes a small village. But because Death's not doing his bit, there's this migration of trolleys. We could actually watch the damn things going down the country, heading towards this bit of land that's now going to be...
No, it was Reaper Man. Reaper Man, that was the one.
That sounds familiar.
He goes off and starts harvesting corn, and he's like the fastest man with a scythe ever.
Yes.
And everybody kept saying, well, he's a bit skinny though, isn't he?
The side is so thin. And the side is so sharp it can cut light or something. It was something weird about it. I must have been possibly 17, 18 when I read that, which was a bloody long time ago.
To be fair, Reaper Man's probably not your best one to have started with, because a lot of those characters are sort of established, and there's a lot of in jokes that...
I'm not sure why I started on one that wasn't the first one. It might just have been a book that I picked up at the time rather than sort of doing it with a view to reading the entire collection.
Yeah, well, I strongly suggest you read some of the others. Moving Pictures would be a good one.
Well, if there's an order to read them in, I'll start at the very beginning. Apparently, it's a very good place to start.
I would suggest that, Terry, within your books, you have enough ideas to produce a similar book as well. Just a tiny little... there's one that I love so much, Deja Vu, which is it's a karate-based deja vu. It's the feeling that you've been kicked in the head this way before.
We spoke recently about the Formula One season, and on Sunday was the first one of the 2017 season. I didn't watch it.
No, neither did I.
Neither of us have got Sky Sports, and certainly in the UK, most of the races are on Sky, with some of the races being on Channel 4. Certainly the first two are only on Sky. And the first one that's on Channel 4 will be Bahrain, which is 16th of April. The first one was Australia, just Sunday, just gone. The next one after that will be, he says, checking his schedule, 9th of April, which is in China. Which again is not going to be on public television, it's just on Sky. And then, Bahrain will be the first one that's available on Channel 4.
Which I still won't be able to watch, because the first one that's on Channel 4 is a weekend to have my daughter, so I shall be driving up the M1.
What time? I'll have to check what time it is on, because you won't necessarily be driving.
I tend to think I'm still stuck in sort of the 90s, where they were all at sort of 2-3 o'clock in the afternoon, but of course that isn't the case now, is it?
Well, it's not. You're thinking about whereabouts in the world it is, because it being ahead of us means it'll be in the morning on the Sunday. I'm not quite sure how far in the morning or what time in the morning, but it'll be in the morning on the Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, I got up I was camping this weekend, and I got up around 7 o'clock, something like that, and checked my phone, and I'd had all the tweets from the BBC F1 coverage, and basically knew the whole rundown of the race within 10 minutes of being awake. So
well, that is one of the joys, I guess, of modern living, is if you want to, you can get all that information very, very quickly. We did once sit up and watch the the Australian Grand Prix at, I think it was 3 o'clock in the morning, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was.
Something, because on Sunday's race, all I've done is listen to Radio 5 Live and their sort of preview of the show, their glimpse of the show. It was only a half hour sort of information. But what they mentioned on there was that the Australian track doesn't actually give much with regards to opportunities for overtaking. So it isn't typically a very exciting race anyway. And by the sounds of it, this was no exception.
I should imagine it'd be even worse than normal because the cars are wider this year, aren't they?
Well, the cars are wider, but then you've generally got some change to the rules that makes the cars different every year, which means the first race is going to be unpredictable because you don't know who's taken advantage of the rules best. And it's also going to be one of these sort of learning races where people might not be pushing it as hard as they can because they know at the end of the day that, well, this is the first race. And even if you don't finish, you've still got the rest of them to carry on. And you can see how everybody else performs and you can see what sort of strategy works best. And yeah, apparently this race was won on a pit stop strategy rather than any sort of big difference in the cars. The first 4 cars, Ferrari and Mercedes. So it was Ferrari, then Mercedes, then Ferrari.
Yep.
It says checking it again.
Yeah, it was. Yep. Yeah.
So and performance-wise, they're all quite close. Even if the finishing times, it was sort of 1 and 2 were within 10 seconds of each other, but then the second Ferrari was 22 seconds behind the first car, and then the next few cars were like a long way behind that. So this is one of the things that kind of put me off Formula One. Was it started to become almost a 2-team game,
a 2-tier race, isn't it? Almost, yeah.
Yeah, and then each year, whoever the 2 teams are that battle it out seem to change every now and again. Ferrari and Mercedes seem to be the ones to battle this year, but well, it's the first race, so maybe it's Ferrari and Mercedes. Maybe one of the other teams will step up to the mark. But yeah, well, I think we'll try and do a bit of a report after each race, especially if there's anything sort of groundbreaking that happens. I want to see the one in Bahrain, depending on what the schedules allow.
Which one's the night race? Is that Bahrain?
I don't think so. I thought the night race came quite late in the season.
I thought it was, but I'm sure it's one of the sort of Eastern races, the sort of Asian type races. Is it Abu Dhabi? Is it that one? Because I've never seen a night race. And
yeah, well, I think it's only a very recent thing, isn't it? Yeah, it's only a very recent thing. It's not something that used to happen when we were watching Grand Prix.
God, no. I mean, it's only probably, I'm just pulling figures out now, but probably about 6 years, 7 years, something like that.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see one, because apparently the cars look absolutely spectacular with all the spotlights shining off them and that kind of thing.
But I think they ought to go. They ought to go one step further and not have all the spotlights, but actually have lights on the cars.
Ooh!
Lewis Hamilton has just seen the car in front of him.
Yeah, there's a bit of a problem with travelling down a straight at 200 miles an hour with no cars in front of you.
All over the place.
Where the hell's the corner? But I mean, from what I gathered from the reports I've read, and I talked to my assistant at work, Glenn. He actually watched the race, and I don't think Kimi Raikkonen's going to be at Ferrari for very long. His contract runs out at the end of this season, and unless he does something absolutely spectacular, then I can't see them renewing it for next season, because like you say, he finished 22 seconds behind Sebastian Vettel, and they're in the same car.
Yeah.
So realistically, he should be close. Obviously, you've got to allow for different driver ability and different luck within the race and that kind of thing. But you would typically expect a teammate to be within a ballpark figure. Well, I mean, it's like Bottas. It's his first time out in the Mercedes, and he finished just 1 second behind Hamilton, which that's perfectly acceptable and well done to him. But to be 22 seconds behind your teammate, I don't think that's acceptable from a team perspective at all. So,
I'm not sure how he ended up so far behind, whether it was because, well, he started fourth on the grid, but whether he lost that time shuffling and pit stops and so forth, I'm not familiar with. But 22 seconds behind is quite a long way, isn't it?
Definitely.
I went out for another training walk this weekend, similar sort of route to the one I've been doing before. Only this time I went into town first to give some sustenance. I fancy some. We eat too healthily, so every now and then I like to pop into town so I can have a cheeky burger or something that's not quite, but then burn it off on the walk. And the other thing it was kind of a test of technology. I keep saying this every time I go out for a walk. It's a chance to test the technology. I don't really care about the walk. It's as long as I can try the camera. The first time I went out for the walk, I had the 360 camera taking pictures every 6 meters along the road. What I tried this time was the Facebook live streaming. Now, did you see the videos I did for that?
No, if I'm being totally honest. Like I said, I was on camp all weekend, so I didn't have my phone with me at all times, and I haven't really had a chance to look at anything since I've been back. So, no, sorry.
That's right. No, well, I was kind of thinking that generally I would stick something like that up on YouTube, and I thought, well, since I've actually got the facility for doing live, I'd try doing this live broadcasting. And it worked surprisingly well. Couple of problems. The wind was one problem. Being on the top of the mount, looking out over all of Guildford, the wind came up and you can barely hear me over the top of the wind. Thankfully, the sound was so obvious that even while I was recording it, I knew that, this isn't going to work. Now, what I do realise, of course, is when we're walking up Snowdon, we're not likely to have a 4G video signal. So
no, probably not.
Given the success of the actual recordings on the walk, I may well do that again as part of my walks. The other thing that I did was a brief talk to the 360 camera as walking along. And the thing with the 360 camera is it's only got an 8 gig internal memory, but what they've done is they've put an SD card actually inside the camera, but it's not designed to be taken apart to change the SD card. They wanted to make sure that they've got a certain quality of card so it can record at a certain speed. But you go to YouTube and it shows you how to take it apart, where the card is, what quality of card to get, and potentially I could put a 32 gig memory card in instead of the 8 gig one, and then we can do a lot of recording when we do go up the mountain, and it will be all 360.
So how much recording time do you get with your 8 gig currently?
I don't know. I think there's something like 20 minutes on the 8 gig, possibly.
Right.
But I wanted to see again the quality and how bearable it is to walk along with the video running, to see whether it jogs around too much. And the path itself was quite nice. It was all right to do. I think that when we go up the actual walk, possibly I'll be more concerned about footing, so I won't be sort of able to carry the camera out in front of me. But certainly we'll do some 360 videos when we're at our stopping points.
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely not taking the drone. We've talked about that, and I'm definitely not going to take it. However, I will be taking my video camera.
Okay. Yeah.
But there's no way that we can take your video from your 360 and my video from my video camera and sort of merge the two into one film, is there? Yeah. Now, is there a way that you can sort of flatten the video so you can say this section is the view and have that as just a normal video, or is it because it's
no, there probably is an app that will do that, but the quality of the video taken in that way isn't perfect, isn't that great. The gimmick of the camera is the fact that it's 360. Right. Likewise, you could possibly take the flat video and put it into like a virtual screen. So as you look away from it, you can look into the corners of the video, or turn around behind you and there'd be nothing, but you've got the screen in front of you. If you wanted to edit the two videos together, but probably I would avoid doing that.
If the quality's too low, then probably not.
Yeah, it's have the 360 as a gimmick, and then possibly a phone camera and your hand camera as two videos to cut together. But I wouldn't try cutting together a 360 and a flat. It's not going to work too well.
Yeah.
So how much practice and how much exercise have you been doing in preparation?
About as much as I've done the last time you asked me. Oh dear, yeah, no. Now the clocks have gone forward, and it's staying lighter at nights. Then, and I don't have to come home and sort of record a podcast. Then there's a good chance that I shall be going out for walks again in the evenings instead of sitting at home in front of my PlayStation. So hopefully I'm going to be able to ramp up the training a little bit now, because weekends I just don't have the time. It's just not happening.
You have been to the top of Snowdon, whereas I haven't.
Yes.
And I seem to remember you saying that you were sort of told that it would be an easy one to start with. So did you prepare much for it the first time, or did you think, oh, it's going to be an easy one?
Yeah.
I can walk, I can put one foot in front of the other, I know what I'm doing.
Essentially that, yeah. Jay told me, oh no, it's simple, mate. We'll start easy. We'll just do Snowdon. And I'm kind of thinking, yeah, it's a sort of touristy hill, if you like. It's not a technical challenge. So I'm thinking, yeah, it's just going to be a windy path that's going to get a bit steep for a bit and what have you, and I'll be absolutely fine. And starting off on the miners track, that's exactly what it was. And I was really happy, and I thought, yeah, this is going to be fine, no problem at all. Until we got to Glaslyn, the lake at the bottom of the climb, and then had to go up there. And that's when I thought, oh, maybe I should have practiced and done some training.
Do you know what the time was for that time?
Hours. No, if I'm being totally honest, I haven't a clue how long. I mean, it took us all day. Excuse me. It took us all day from start to finish.
Yeah.
But we weren't rushing, and I did stop a lot. We spent quite a long time in the cafe at the top of the mountain. I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? There's a cafe at the top of the mountain. You can get at the top and have a cup of tea. How English is that? But no.
I'm wondering now if that cafe's now got Wi-Fi, because then you could do your Facebook video from the top of the mountain. But
it wouldn't be impossible, because they must have
something for the tills.
Yeah, they take card payments and stuff up there. I bought an I Climb Snowdon T-shirt, and I'm sure I paid with my card there. So they must have some sort of connection of some description there. Yeah. So yeah, they might have a Wi-Fi in the cafe, so we could do a little stream from the top of that. So you might be able to get one from the top of standing on the trig point at the very summit, because that is next door to the cafe. So yeah, shortly after I did Snowdon, we went off again and I did Kinder Scout up in Derbyshire, And got to the top and made a joke. It's like, well, where the hell's the cafe?
Yeah.
Do not all hills have a cafe at the top? And a railway to take you home if you're a bit tired? But no, I've done absolutely nothing. I hope to change that relatively quickly, because yes, I did struggle. Like I say, most of the path was absolutely fine, but the last sort of probably a mile in lateral distance, yeah, that was a real struggle.
Well, I do kind of want to make a point of noting how long it takes us, even if it is the same sort of thing where it takes us all day, because it's one that I'd like to do more than once. So if we can do it and keep improving, that would be a good thing. Well, thank you for listening, and if you have any comments, please leave them below on YouTube or on Facebook.